Today we have a guest speaker, David Strum. He's from, if you couldn't put it together, he's from the Signs of the Times magazine ministries. He's told me this morning he's been to 1,600 churches over the course of his career. And so today we're glad that God has brought him to our church to share a bit of his testimony, to share some of his message about having a relationship with God and the blessings it brings. So thank you, David, for coming and blessing us this morning.
Good morning. How are the Saints and Tracy doing today? Is this on? Okay. Well, my sermon title is Searching for God. There's a lot of people in the world searching for God. And I was in that position at one time. I didn't grow up in the Adventist church or any church. And my burden is to reach these people because I know that God has more of his people still wandering around the world than we have in our church. They just don't know it yet. It's up to us to let them know that God can deliver them and give them a new life. I'm going to tell you, is this my water? Okay. I have to start with water already. Okay. Starting out in life, I was born in Illinois, but I didn't grow up there. I was the youngest one in the family. There were 7 kids. I was the youngest one. Around 1947, we moved to Southern California to the Mojave Desert. I don't know what we're doing there, but we ended up there. And growing up, we never went to church. But my mother believed very strong in God. She used to read the Bible. She would tell me things about God. She would tell me what I should do and shouldn't do when I grow up. And she never mentioned ever going to church when she was young. I never mentioned a thing about it. But she just used to read and tell me things about God. And one thing she would tell me not to do was drink. That's because my dad drank, but he had some good points. We didn't do without like a lot of families with this problem. He still supported us. But she said it wasn't good anyway. So as time went on, I got to be a little older. When I was almost 14 years old, my mother died. She had cancer. Back in those days, a lot of people didn't go to doctors. But anyway, they couldn't have done much then. But anyway, that's what happened. So after that had happened, my dad, he found someone else after that. And we didn't see him for a little while. I think he was ashamed or something. I don't know what it was. But anyway, I have these older brothers and sisters of mine. I started going and staying with them. And I done this until that's what I done until when I was 17. As soon as I was old enough, I joined the Army. Now, what I was going to say is the thing, but before that, the thing my mother told me not to do, the drinking part, I ended up doing while I was yet a teenager. So I go in the Army, and I start out in Fort Ord, over here, Fort Ord, California. And after that, they sent me to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. Now, even before I went in the Army and after this, I was always running into Christians that would invite me to church. But all the churches I went to back in those days preached a lot of hellfire and brimstone. And so I was always meeting ones that done this. So I used to worry about it. I didn't like the idea of that. And I didn't understand it. So anyway, while I was in Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, some of you older ones remember, in 1962, we had the Cuban Missile Crisis that almost started a war. And I was there. And they had us all packed up to go to Florida. It actually almost did start a war. And they had us go. So I was kind of nervous. Some of us were nervous. And I started thinking about it. I said, well, what if we have a war? What if I get killed? And I used to wonder what heaven's like. And I used to worry about what hell is like. All this hellfire and brimstone I've been hearing about. Because I am a person that believes very strong in God. And I believe God's going to do what he says he's going to do. So I brought this little Bible. This is a very important Bible to me. It's the first Bible I had in my life. They give me these and go into the service. So I wanted to start reading and learning more about God. And in the back of this Bible, it has all these promises. And I read these things. And it says, and God said what He'll do for you. And it has the things that, my decision to receive Christ as my Savior. Confessing to God I'm a sinner, believing that the Lord Jesus Christ died for my sins on the cross and raised my justification, I do now receive Him as my personal Savior. And I signed it and dated it December 3rd, 1962. This is like a baptism to me. I was so serious about this. This is equivalent to a baptism. At the same time, I had no church. I still drank part-time when I was Christian. But this is what we need to understand when we are working with people in the world, that God takes people where they're at. Back then, I didn't know where I was at. I didn't know where I was going. I didn't know I was being led anywhere. So anyway, after this Cuban Missile Crisis blew over and that, I was there for a while yet. After they sent me to Fort Campbell, Kentucky. That's where the 101st Airborne is. It's on the border of Kentucky, Tennessee. It's 50 miles north of Nashville. So after we got settled, I had a couple of us buddies. We used to go to Nashville on the weekend. We hitchhiked. We didn't have a car then. We hitchhiked to Nashville. But anyway, I was always meeting these wonderful Christian girls. And they invite me to church. I got some more hellfire and brimstone. And this kind of thing. And anyway, I continued this kind of life until I was actually there until I got out at the end of 64, almost 65. When I got out, I returned back to California where I grew up. About that time, I had a brother, my older brother. He just had moved to Rialto. It's over near Riverside or somewhere. He moved there. And so I went to work. I went there to visit him. I ended up staying there for a little while. I went to work for a nursery doing landscaping. And so my brother and sister-in-law were very involved with church. They had 2 little girls. They taught Sunday school and everything, so I went to church with them. And I said to my brother after church, I said, I'm confused. He said, what about? I said, well, I've been to a lot of different churches. They all say they're God's church, and they all say the same thing. I said, is this God's church you're going to? He said, I don't know. You just find when you're comfortable with and go there. Okay, so the following Friday after work, I went up to where I grew up by a town between Lancaster and Mojave called Rosamond. That's where you go into Edwards Air Force Base. That's where I grew up. And I had a sister still living there, and she had a boyfriend in the Air Force. She ended up marrying him, but anyway, he used to bring some buddies with him. Well, they liked to drink. So that's what took place. It came Sunday night. I don't know what time it was, 10 or so at night, 11, I don't know. We ended up in Lancaster somehow. And I said, I got to go back to San Bernardino to work tomorrow. Well, I don't know what I was doing driving. I faintly hardly remember leaving. I don't even know how I got... Well, back then, Palmdale was only 3,500 people. And they had one blinking light. Now it's 200,000 because people from San Fernando want to live there and drive back and forth to work. so anyway, I don't know how I made it through Pear Blossom, Little Rock. If anybody knows about Highway 138. And... I don't remember. The police were after me. I didn't know that. I didn't hear no siren. I didn't hear no lights. I didn't hear nothing, see nothing. They said, then I found out it was going almost 100 miles an hour. And some of you people here, older people, remember a car named the DeSoto. They quit making them 55. I have 54 DeSoto. They're a big car. Well, only thing I remember is waking up in the rodeo and God saved me. I thought I was dying. I couldn't open my eyes. They're full of sand. I thought it wasn't sand. It was ground glass. My whole face was scraped. And my brother's little girl saying, because it was like my whole face was a scab, And so they took me to the hospital, cleaned my eyes. My brother came after me. I didn't know what happened until the next day. I found out I rear-ended a huge truck. It rolled the truck. The first thing I worried about, I thought my drinking might have killed someone. I found out I got hurt a bit, nobody got killed. But my brother and I, a few days later, went over to the wrecking yard to see it. And it it was a hardtop, but it made a convertible out of it. What I mean is it shaved the motor, the manifold off the motor. The dash and steering wheel was up against the front seat, partly way back to the back seat. I have no idea how I got out of it. I felt God save me. This man directing our car, he said, "Was you in that car?" I said, "Yeah, we can be thankful you're walking." So I was very thankful. And I couldn't work for a couple weeks because I was kind of sore from this accident. I'm glad that's all that was wrong with me. But about that time, I had a sister move to a town called Lodi, California, up here. And she said, "Well, come up here. It's a nice place. There's work." So I take a bus to Lodi. I didn't have a car anymore. Well, I did have insurance, but it only covered the accident, so I was glad. I found out it was a huge truckload of plums. Anyway, so I took the bus to Lodi. Now, it was almost 1965, and Lodi at that time was about 25,000 people. You cannot live there too long without hearing an Adventist one way or another. I wasn't around the Riverside area long enough. In Lodi, they had 2 churches like with 1,000 members each. They have a 12-grade school, Lodi Academy. So when I got well, I went looking for landscaping work. I'd done it since I was actually 14 years old. And so I started doing that. And so I went to the unemployment. I was looking for work, and they said, "Yeah, this man is looking for someone," so they sent me. Now, I noticed he was different. I noticed he carried a Bible with him to work. But the main thing I noticed above anything else, he was happy and enjoyed living. And went to work. Now, he didn't preach to me or nothing, but a couple of days later he said, "I noticed you don't smoke. Are you a Christian?" I said, I believe in God. I don't belong to no church. I said, I just never did like smoking. He didn't say anything more to me, but the rest of the week, I could tell he's happy to be alive on earth, So it comes Friday, close to quitting time. I said, "Are we going to work tomorrow?" He said, "No, I go to church." I said, "What? What do you go to church on Saturday for?" Why he goes, "Everybody else goes on Sunday." He showed me the Bible the Sabbath day. I said, "He calls that the Sabbath day." Anyway, he showed me all these things in the Bible about the Sabbath day, and he said, "How would you like to come to church once and see what it's like?" I said, "I'll come once. I've been to a lot of churches." So it was the end of November, I think. So him and his wife come and pick me up and bring me. So the only thing I knew at this time that you went to church on Saturday. So I don't know what it was about it, whether they had Sabbath school or church, but I liked it and I kept going. Now they kept picking me up. I would have came anyway. And now 2 months later, in January of 65, at HMS Richards Jr., he started having evangelist meetings in Stockton. I went to about every one of these meetings. Oh, I was getting so excited about the things I was learning, especially to stay the dead and the Sabbath day. That gave me a lot of peace. It's like a breath of fresh air. But here's the wonderful thing about God. Not only does he save your life from an accident, but he gives you a new life. Just like the lost sheep. We're lost or found, and he dead and he gives you life, and he gives it to you now. He does it on the spot. You believe God. And it says that, I want to talk about this a minute. It says when you accept Jesus and get converted, God looks and you get baptized and give your heart to God. He washes your sins at the bottom of the sea. He remembers them no more. We start out like a new born again Christian who's never sinned. When Satan, this happens, you start walking with God, having a wonderful life, then Satan comes along and says, well, now that you're saved through Jesus, now you got to prove yourselves worthy of being saved. So he tries to get your relationship with God to become legalism and works. Legalism and works is bondage and don't set you free. You're already set free. You don't keep him to be saved. You keep because he's already saved you. Then you can live a victorious life walking in his robe of righteousness. He said, okay, here's the thing, because he already defeated the evil one. He says, when he knows we're striving to follow him, he says, if you fall, I'll pick you back up. For one thing, the battle's not ours, it's his. He fights our battles for us. He wants us under his robe of righteousness. He wants to protect us. All you have to do is believe him and trust him. You know, where it says in Psalm 91, 1,000 can fall at thy side, 10,000 right side. I will not come near you. You made the Lord your habitation. And that's how he'll protect us in the time in the end when we have this kind of relationship with God where we trust him for everything. Now, I'm going to go back to Lodi. I was so excited about these things I was learning. I didn't wait until I joined the church. I started witnessing immediately. Just people. And I'd meet young people like me, and I start telling them, look at this I'm learning. My sister, I told her all about it, but she just joined another church. She didn't know what I was doing. But anyway, she wasn't interested. But I had a brother and sister-in-law that moved to Medford, Oregon while I was in the Army. They came down to Lodi to visit. Now, my sister-in-law, I've known her since I was 12 years old. But she accepted it right away because we talk about God a lot because her dad used to be a Baptist preacher. But then it took about 4 or 5 years later for my brother to join, but he did. So I stayed around Lodi a little while. And I got married until 1967. And so we went up to Medford to visit. Medford, Grants Pass, Rogue River area. It's a beautiful area. I thought I'd like to move up here. So I moved up there around, October or something. And there was a landscaping company in Portland, landscaping the new city hall there. And so they talked me into moving to Portland. Ooh. I went up there in November, and it drizzled and rained all winter. So I ended up not staying there. I went here and there. I better start talking. I can't even see the clock. But anyway, so I moved here and there, and I didn't settle down until 1974 when I moved to Caldwell, Idaho. Now, I used to get Steps to Christ. I was going to mention this. I'll tell you in a minute. I moved to Caldwell, Idaho, where they got 4 seasons. So landscaping was only seasonal, but I'd done other things in the meantime, like landscaping and stuff. And I mean, I'd done that, but I'd done that. And when it was out of season, I started this wholesale florist business where I used to sell things and travel and sell things. Okay. But from the beginning, I got Steps to Christ. They used to be 10 cents a piece. You get a box of 100 for $10. I get 4 or 5 boxes. I'd hand them out to motel maids, truck drivers. I'd meet people. Anybody, I'd give them away. And I know several people got converted from Steps to Christ. There's one wonderful story, but I don't have time to tell it, about a hitchhiker that was carrying a gun and planning on robbing me and take my truck. But he couldn't do it, he said later. Found it out. But anyway, so during the time I was traveling around doing these things, in 1983, we had first heard mention that Pacific Press Publishing was thinking about moving. See, it had been in the San Francisco Bay Area for over 100 years. 110 years it was there. They came to the point that they move or close. They looked around. They didn't know if they was going to move, close, or merger review, or what they're going to do. But they chose to move to the Boise area. And they moved there in 84. After it got settled, I thought, it'd be so nice to go to work here. This is God's publishing house. If I go to work there, I wouldn't have to travel no more. They work 4 days a week, 10, 12 hours a day. I get a 3-day weekend every weekend. I didn't have experience, and they didn't have nothing for me at that time. Well, time flies by. It gets to be 1988. And I thought, boy, if I can't go to work there soon, I'll never go to work there. I keep getting older. Well, I had a friend that went to the same church I did that told me, he said, someone will be leaving the press room soon. You ought to try to get the job. I said, okay. I kept going back and talked to him 3 or 4 times, acting like they didn't want to hire me, like I was too old. And this is back in 88. But the magazine that prints this, the press that prints this magazine prints 30,000 an hour. That's almost 9 of these every second. And you have to think fast and move fast. You don't stop a web press. You have to make corrections while it runs. They want to hire a young man and train him. And it's true, when you're younger, you can think faster and move faster. But I told the guy I was talking to, I said, let me work in here for 1 week. If I can't do the job, you don't have to pay me. I'll donate my time. He said, that's okay. I'll give you a chance to work here. So I go to work there in April of 88. Now, here's the thing. I've been going to the Adventist church since November of 64, but up until the time I went to work here, I knew Signs of Times existed, but Steps to Christ is the only book I ever gave out. And so when the first time they printed Signs, I looked there and said, boy, that's a good magazine for the world. So I immediately started sending signs to all my family and friends. Okay, time goes by, and 3 months later, I get on full time, and it gets to be 1991. Nothing great happening, nice, peaceful place to work, but things start happening in 91. One day in 91, one of my sisters called me. The same one that used to live in Lodi. She called me, tell me how much she liked the magazine, the article in it. So that made me excited. Well, I had a bigger surprise. I have a sister that lives in Ventura, California. She's my oldest sister. She's 92 years old. And she called me and told me how much she liked it. So I got getting and I have a sister in Illinois. When we moved to California in 47, she's 18 years older than I am. She was already married, so she stayed there. And I called her. She didn't know who sent it to her. I said, do you like the magazine? Shall not quit sending? She said, quit sending. It's my favorite magazine. Now, I grew up by Roseman. I went to a library and got a phone book from that area. And the ones I went to school with, and neighbors that never moved away, I started sending signs to them. I called one of my friends I went to school with. He wasn't home. I talked to his wife. She told me she liked it and wanted to keep getting it. Well, right now, I was extremely excited. I started asking him all kinds of questions. How long have you been printing signs? Whose idea was it? Who was the first editor? They thought, what is this new man so excited about something we had for over 100 years for? Well, we're getting these ruts. And so I asked them if I could see if they have, I could get the first page copy of the very first signs ever printed. So they did. They got it, and so this is the first signs. James White, editor. June 4 of 1874. This is the oldest and longest continuous printed Christian magazine in the United States. A very interesting article on how wicked the world is. Really. The article entitled A True Picture. We give below a startling description of the state of the church of the world. Going on and talks about it. A nice poem about shake the dust off and get busy. This is the front page of 8 pages. To be continued. I asked for the first 16 pages. They'd done it for me. But anyway, I always share this. They didn't have a press yet when this was printed. This is done in an outside shop. 4 months later, in October of 1874, they had a camp meeting in a town called Yountville, California, where 400 people came to that camp meeting. The main purpose for camp meeting that year was to raise money to start the new publishing house. They raised over $19,000, a lot of money then, and the first one started in Oakland. Originally started to print signs. James White referred to signs as a silent preacher. He said it does the work a preacher can't do. It brings people to the preacher. So here was and now that church is called Signs Memorial Church. That Yountville Church. That's the name of it. So here I was excited. I had a burden for signs. I didn't know what to do about it. So I started donating money to Signs World Evangelism. Gary Grimes, who was in charge of Signs World Evangelism, came down to the press room and said that he wanted to send him money up there. I said, I'm excited about signs. I want to help signs. He goes away happy or something. Well, he didn't know, and no one else knew. I had a horrible burden for signs, but I didn't know what to do about it. So I just prayed about it at home at the press. Now, they do have a prayer room at the press, but I couldn't go to a prayer room because if that press runs 10 hours, you have to stay there 10 hours. You have to go to rest. You have to get someone else to watch your place that knows what they're doing there. So anyway, they got these pillars of paper. The rolls of paper that print this, they weigh a ton each, and they run 2 at a time. They change them every 20 minutes. They run 900 feet an hour, a minute, 900 feet a minute, and when it splices while it's running, but the rolls dry. I can't even explain it to you, but anyway. So, we had a huge storage room with hundreds of rolls of paper and pillars of paper. Every morning when they were getting the press ready to start, in amongst those paper rolls in my prayer room, I talked to God about it. I said, I have no idea what you want me to do about signs other than give them money. I have no idea. You have to make it known somehow or work upon the hearts of people who are depressed or something. Well, it's amazing the way God works. He don't always perform miraculous miracles. We don't always hear voices and things like this. The thing is, we have what we need to do God's work. If you see an opportunity, grab it. So, it was April 91. All these things I told you about, my sister never did, April 91. It was 4 months. All these things happened within the first 4 months. One day, in April 91, the press was stopped. And I went down, in the lobby of the press, they have an ABC bookstore. I went there to get something. For the first time in my life, I seen one of these. Gary Grimes had one of these. He had it just sitting there and didn't know what to do with it. And I thought, boy, that's one of the best things Signs ever come up with. So I immediately went to Gary Grimes and I ordered 2 of them for myself. It takes 2 to 4 months to get these. They came and anyway, meanwhile, while I was waiting to get my boxes, I borrowed one from the press to show to my church. I said, when these boxes come, I'll give them to the church. If their church will help me get their magazines, I said, okay. And then, my wife says to me, well, I'll tell you this after. So anyway, And then I went to camp meeting. Camp meeting started in June. He was up in the platform at camp meeting. And he said they'd like every church in the Idaho Conference to have one of these. So they took a special offering and they raised enough money to buy, 40 or so, whatever, 40 of these boxes for each church. When that happened, that gave me an idea. I went and talked to the president of the press. I said, listen, and I talked to our Idaho Conference president, Steve McPherson. I said, when you send these to the churches, if someone don't go there and help them place that box and get them going, that'll be sitting in the back room somewhere. He said, oh, that's a good idea, you can go. And my wife said, what in the world's gone wrong with you? I'd never spoken to church. I had one little problem. I'd never spoken to church before. That's the first time I ever talked. And she said, your eye is so red, she thought I was going to faint, and so did the pastor. I said, you don't have a burden for signs. I said, I want to make sure these boxes are out working. I said, I'll go every other week. I'll do you 1 week and that. So I started going to real small churches first, like Burns, Oregon, Weiser, Idaho, Eastern Oregon's in Idaho, Upper Idaho's in Upper Columbia, Washington. So now I started seeing. I went to those two, Weiser and Burley. Weiser and Burns. My next one is Burley, Idaho, over by there, Burley and Rupert. I was supposed to go there in November of 91 and have the church service. The pastor called me at the press and changed his mind and told me not to come to church. He said, well, we have a church of like 50 members. We have a church school. We have a real tight budget. He said, even though the box is free, we can't afford to buy the magazines for it. I already sent it back to conference. Don't come. Okay, I didn't think nothing of it. Well, God must have thought something of it. Because when I went home from work that night, we're watching the 10 o'clock news. On the news, they were talking about Satan worship in Minidoka County, which was Burley and Rupert. They showing all the problems they're having with this. The mayor of Rupert, with a big auditorium full of people, Christians of different denominations, came together to pray about this problem. And I thought to myself, I told my wife, they need signs there, and the pastor told me not to come. So I go to work and say, I didn't call the pastor back. I got information. I called the mayor of Rupert. He was there. I said, I seen the news last night. I see your problem. I said, we have a Christian magazine called Signs of the Times. I said, we can put them in newspaper boxes. We put in stores and places. He said, oh, that's a good idea. I think I know you can put one. I said, well, good. I called the pastor back. I said, I talked to the mayor of Rupert, and he said he wants signs there. He told me to bring the box back. Anyway, we put them out. There's a little town called Eden. Burley had over 20 Bible studies the first year. They had a little town called Eden, had a church of 5 members. We put one there. And they had some evangelist meetings where 9 got baptized, part of them from this and part from the evangelist meetings. And Idaho, over 200 requests. I'm just about done. Don't worry. Don't even watch the clock. Anyway, so then where I go to church, I went to church in Eagle, Idaho back that time. Now I go to Parma. But anyway, there's a town called Emmett. They had the same pastor we did. A man seen this and picked it up. First time I ever heard of anything. He liked it. He got baptized. His wife didn't want him to, but he did it anyway. But when you get converted, it's been contagious. Because his wife and other family members joined the church. So when I seen all those 200 requests for Bible studies, I seen Alan get baptized and these other ones, I put 2 and 2 together, and I figured out what God wanted me to do. So I wrote out a proposal to the president of the press, suggesting to him how this would be done throughout North America. So immediately he had the vice president of marketing contact me. So as of January 93, I don't work in January 93, I don't work in the press room no more. I have a job of doing this throughout North America. One of the suggestions I had with the president was, buy 100 boxes at a time. I'll take some with me, and I'll take magazines with me and get them started. So I used to have an old 1972-ton truck, like a U-Haul. I put 50 of these in it. I took my car and a tow dolly with magazines. I headed down the Mojave Desert. But I went to Needles. Lake Havasu, who had 3 baptisms. Chinle, Arizona had 5. So I started going, doing this. Then I started going further and further. But anyway. So I was actually at this church back in the 90s sometime. I don't remember what year. I had to look it up or something. But anyway, that's what happened here, And so it's amazing. Since I started doing this, I've spoken over 1,600 churches. I've been in every state but Hawaii. I have sent a few boxes. If they'd like me to come, I got to figure out a way to do it. I can't drive there. We can send these on a boat or something, and I can come over there. So anyway, that's the way it goes. Now, I was going to say, I wanted to read, before closing, I really wanted to read these promises, some of these promises. Now, we need to, it's very simple, you know. It's just God wants us to trust him and believe him. You know, last year, in October, the fall of last year, the Sabbath School Quarterly was on Abraham was the first missionary. It says it in 3 words. It's not complicated. Abraham believed God and was accredited to him as righteousness. We believe God and trust him. He will do marvelous things for us. I don't have time to tell them, but I have so many miracles like they're common. Almost every time I go on a science mission, see, I don't have this way. I should have brought it in. I have one out there. It's not one of these, but I'm the only one who works in sales and marketing, don't have a computer. But they feel that God has used me, so they don't want to bother me. Have you ever gotten these little pamphlets that are this long and this wide? Different ways to do evangelism, like pocket signs, things like that. Not the little ones like this, glow and those. I'm talking about, it's about almost the size of this, and it talks about, it has Ted Wilson on there. It has a picture. If you open it up, it has a picture in here. It talks about what I'm doing. They put my name and phone number. This is amazing, but pastors, when I'm going on, they've done this continually for a long time. When I go on a science mission, someone calls me the same road I'm traveling. I could tell you an amazing story I had in Florida last year, but anyway, I'm going to, what's good about next week? The people don't know what I've done or anything. I'm having church. They made a new church by Wrightwood, California, on Highway 138. Their church about 5 miles from where I almost got killed. I'm having church there next weekend. They don't know nothing about it. I just told them I'm coming. So anyway, but, you know, that God does amazing things for us, but I want to read these promises that can comfort you maybe. Well, this is, I'm not reading all of them. The assurance as a believer. That if thou shalt confess with thy mouth that Jesus is the Son of Man, thou shalt be saved. For with the mouth confession made unto salvation, and with the heart this is fine print. Anyway, it's a promise, a very promise what God does for us. It's in Romans something. Here. Confession, that if thou shalt confess with thy mouth the Lord Jesus Christ, and shalt believe in thine heart that God had raised him from the dead, thou shalt be saved. For with the heart man believeth unto righteousness, and with the mouth confession is made unto salvation. But here's one I really like. Now this is in 2 Corinthians 5:21. For he, now this is we need to really think about this one. For he had made him to be sin for us who knew no sin, that we might be made the righteousness of God in him. Amen. Trust God, believe him, you get his righteousness. That's a wonderful promise. And there's many other ones, but that's all I can have this. Okay, I'm doing pretty good. This is it. I'm going to tell you real quickly what this is involved, and I'll be real fast about this. I want to tell you something. I do not collect money. I just work for the press. These boxes, I know you have a couple old ones out, and you have one out here that you have for people that come to church. These are different than the ones you have there. They have a flat surface in them. See that? And they have a wrap with 3 dividers. Now, these I'll just tell you about it real quick. These are $349, but they're buy one, get one free. You get 2 for the price of 1. They're like $174, and then you own the box. Now, the magazines. They are, you already get some, right? You know how many you're getting? 16? Oh. Well, anyway, from not 6 to 99 are one price. If you get 100, the price drops. It's 99 a month for 100. If you get 200, it drops again. It's 168 for a month for 200. And so anyway, I'll tell you all about that. And there's El Centinela. They're 80 cents a piece, but they're not the same size. These are 64 pages. These are 48. I'm not going to hand these out. But on the way out of church, this is a single-sign subscription to send to a friend or relative. Anybody that wants one of these, ask me for one on the way out of church. Now, I know places these can go, and there's not a lot of places. See, when towns grow like that, all the new shopping centers, printing is hurting today in all areas. But all the new shopping centers they build, there's no paper boxes. They're only in the other places in town. Now, I know 3 places they can go. Over here on 11th and F Street, there's a Valero station, I can put one. And also across the freeway, I know there's one at that Nation, but across the freeway, I got the permission to put one at Denny's. There's not a free box there. I was getting out and I was going there and someone asked me something, the man out there, the owner was out there picking up things out of the parking lot. And I told him about this and he went over and looked and I showed him, I take a picture of the box, I take 3 or 4 magazines, and he told me we could put one there. Only put Signs or El Sentinel in it. Don't put anything else. Okay. Then also this, right up here on Grant Line, about 2 or 3 blocks I hear is that grocery store, that Mexican grocery store. There's 2 boxes out there. They told me I could put one there. Because they told me English people go there too to shop. I mean, can speak Spanish. Can speak English. So that's where they can go. So, but if anybody's interested, because I have these boxes with me. If anybody's interested in sponsoring a box, talk to me on the way out of church. Everything's done through the ABC. Okay. So thanks for your time. I think it's only 10 till, isn't it? So it worked out good. I was supposed to be done at quarter till, but I didn't know it. Anyway, okay, thanks for your time. Do you have a closing song? But whatever you get, whatever we get them, when you put them in weekly. Don't put them in all at once.